The traditional kind of linear packaged educational experience can't keep up with the demands of the modern workforce today. In many ways, it's similar to what's happening in TV, music, and movies in terms of how we need to consume education in the future. You know, I've been traveling a lot the last couple of weeks, so I'm kind of binge watching and catching up to the rest of my family for what they're watching. I've been watching The Night Agent on Netflix, and so I binge watched that on the way here yesterday. And my kids, you know, I have 2 teenage daughters at home. They don't really understand how my wife and I, we're both Gen Xers, used to consume television when you couldn't just watch it whenever you wanted to, right? We're in a revolution now on how we consume TVs, music, and movies that my kids just don't appreciate. If you remember, for those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s, there was this thing called shelf space in television. And if you were a programmer, you had to program what went on television, network television between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. each night. You only had so much space in that, and you couldn't move it. My kids don't understand, well, what if you missed the show at 8 o'clock on Thursday night? Well, you have to wait for the repeats or syndication. That was totally over their head. And then, of course, this thing called the VCR came along, and if you could figure out how to program it, you were lucky to watch that program later on. But there were just so many hours in the week that needed to be programmed, and radio was the same. There was this idea of shelf space. And now the concept of shelf space, whether it's in television, music, movies, has been transformed from streaming, right? There is no concept of shelf space. We now can put as much content out there as we want, and it could be consumed as people want to consume it, whether they want to consume it one at a time or all at once. We are no longer held captive to that schedule of Thursday nights at 8 o'clock and by time. And in many ways, the same thing is happening in this new learning economy too. We're no longer captured by the calendar and by time. When I described how my wife and I used to watch television to my kids, where we had to show up at a specific time, you know what their response was? It's like school, right? We have to show up at a certain moment of every day and every year. These are the attributes of the new learning economy. It's going to be much more flexible, outcome-based, where work and learning is going to be much more combined than it is today. And in fact, I think the tension on our campuses that has been evident around the humanities and sciences are now going to be around academic learning and hands-on learning and experiential learning. That's going to be the next phase as we think about this new learning economy. And I know where a lot of us are thinking about where AI fits into all this. AI is at the end of that list because it will enable everything above it.